It's the number one measure we have. That's what Kirby said to a question earlier in the summer about how Georgia will decide who is going to win the quarterback battle. It was specifically referencing play during games. And that certainly is the biggest part about playing quarterbacks. Not how you practice specifically, it's how do you play. Now, practice is the number one indicator of what's going to happen when you go play because, it's not like you're going from tennis to ping pong or whatever. You're still playing football. And I think what we've seen with Carson Beck in his time playing in games is that Georgia can really score under him. They can get down the field pretty quick. Brock Vandagriff, we just haven't seen him play enough in actual games. And in G Day, G Days, there's times when he really flashes, to be honest with you. Again, I've talked about this quite a bit with Brock Vandagriff. If there's a more talented athlete on the team, there's not six of them. I mean, he's super gifted. He is about as fast as you get at quarterback. Um, but we just don't know a lot about him in terms of all of it. And Carson has not locked this thing down yet, and the tea leaves are that there's not going to be an announcement before the season gets here. And the reason I say that is because there's typically not an announcement before the season gets here. But I don't see any reason to make an announcement in any way if you're Georgia. I mean, I don't think that you. I think this thing is to me very clear unless something's changed, and of course we only see so much of practices. Unless something's changed pretty substantially, Carson Beck will be the starting quarterback, but Brock Vandagriff will play. And the question is, how much will Brock Vandagriff play? Because Carson Beck, if he's your starter, needs to get some tread on his tires too. So, Georgia's got some options. I would be curious. I'm not advocating for it. I'd be curious to see Gunnar Stockton play some as well. But usually in games, there's only about 12 series. It depends on the game. But, the range is like 10 to 14. If you get like a really fast game, like a Tech Georgia from the past or a Kentucky Georgia, where both teams really run the ball a lot, you might not have, you may only have 9 or 10. Uh, you may have like, two drives a quarter and that's it. But typically, it's about 12. So that's not a lot of drives because each drive has different components to it. It's not always going to be the quarterback throwing the football. And there's so much that goes into scoring. I've got a story about that in a second. Make sure you're getting this for free right here. You can get this for free by signing up down below. The link is right down below for you to check out. You're going to get this free. You're going to get a shirt from Red Zone for free. If you have purchased Double Dogs, I'm going to give you September for free, but you have to sign up now. You also get 20% off any item from Red Zone. Okay, so panoramics, this shirt, the other stuff's over there, so I'm not going to go grab it. But any item from Red Zone store online, you can get that. It doesn't matter where you live. You live in Hayhira or Harlem, you can get all of them. So, Hayhira, Harlem, Hiwassee. I don't know any other H's in Georgia, but I'm sure there are a ton, and I'm sure I will be reprimanded. Hamilton, is there a Hamilton? There's a Hamilton County, I think. Houston County. I could go on. Harris. It's not Hamilton. It's Harris County. So anyway, I think Georgia's in a position right now where this quarterback room is in a really good spot. I think they're in a pretty good spot because you've got some guys who can really play. Carson Beck being one of them. There's a lot of behind the scenes confidence about him. Here's what he said to Aaron Murray: I came back to Georgia for a reason. I want to make sure that when I get my chance, I'm fully capable of anything that might be thrown my way. He was talking about coming back and not transferring. Um, Greg McElroy, I don't think Georgia misses a beat at all with Carson Beck. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, Carson, I don't know how many drives, but it was at least 7. I would say it was probably 16 to 20 drives that he had last year. Um, because he played in 7 games, and some of those games he was playing quarters, not halves, but quarters. So, like against Vanderbilt, he looked good. Against Oregon, he looked good. Against TCU, he looked good. Against South Carolina, he looked good. I think against Auburn, he just handed the ball off. But he played quite a bit. I think against Tech, he basically handed it off. But, you know, Carson is going to need a little bit of time. If Brock Vandergriff goes on to win this thing, he's definitely going to need more time. I mean, you know, Brock has not been in the program as long. He's only, he's not been in it as long. He's not been the backup quarterback. He's not had as much game time. But, Kirby and them have really, things have changed and that's what happens when you win back-to-back national championships. You just won one national championship. Like all of this pressure, if you want to put it that way, to win the first one was sensational. I mean, I do this for a living. I've been doing this for a very long time. I'm not just some idiot on Twitter. And it was palatable, the pressure going into that Alabama game for the national championship. The first one, there was a lot of pressure too. The second one, it was more acute. I mean, it wasn't just, hey, we won the Rose Bowl. Someone just signed up for the site. Thank you very much. You're going to get your magazine as well as your discount. That code will come a couple of days after you sign up from our friends at Red Zone. But that, you could feel that in the air in Indianapolis. There was serious angst. I don't know if you could think that in 17 because it came so quick. And I remember having a conversation. Sometimes I can't remember who I talked to. Usually it's people either inside the program or former players or just like kind of people that are, in the league or whatever. Someone was saying, this was a former player who had had experiences at other places. They said, the first national championship is going to be the hardest one. After that, it won't seem as hard. Well, that's true. That turned out to be true because everything's in place. What Georgia's been missing is quarterback. And what seemingly a lot of other people have had, Alabama, certainly. Alabama, quarterback. Oklahoma, quarterback. They've had a lot of things that you've needed. I mean, to some degree, Florida lately. I mean, they've had 2 guys who've been drafted in the first 2 rounds in the NFL draft. They've had quarterbacks. They've not had everything else. That matters. Everything else matters, but it all matters. Everything matters. And what Kirby and them kind of, if you want to say, got wrong in the past, they've gotten right lately. I think you could make the argument that they should have played Stetson Bennett earlier or stuck with Stetson Bennett. But, we don't, it's easy to say that looking backwards, but they have finally kind of narrowed in on the quarterback. And when I watch a lot of TV in terms of sports, and so much of the NFL is focused on the quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers to the Jets now, and suddenly the Jets are in a good situation when you don't have Zach Wilson starting for you. You look at the Falcons. There's no expectation they're going to win the Super Bowl. Not with Desmond Ridder as he stands currently. Does anyone really think the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl? Dak Prescott's never shown the capability of winning, multiple playoff games, nevertheless the division and multiple playoff games in the same season. Of course, I could be wrong about that. I don't follow the NFL very well, but you get my general point. It is so much dictated, this sport, on how well your quarterback plays. The NBA or college basketball, it's not about the point guard. It's about the star, but it's not about the point guard necessarily. And what is a point guard anymore? So, but in football, quarterback's very defined, and that's going to be the part that if you could just give Carson Brock's legs, or if you could just take whatever it is that Carson's got that Brock does not yet have and keep the legs with Brock, I mean, they're in a pretty good position. I think, to me, what's improved so much for Carson is he seems to understand how to play quarterback better. That's what it feels like to me. I think that Gunnar Stockton came to Georgia the most prepared to play quarterback. And having watched him live more than once, Gunnar Stockton understands how to play, and that's not a surprise coming from the tutelage he had up at Raven. The Shaws understand. The Shaw family understands how to play quarterback. Connor Shaw, if I'm not mistaken with the name, the guy who was at South Carolina was one of the best playing quarterbacks in the league this century. He was not a physically gifted passer the way that a lot of the guys have come since, Joe Burrow, Tua, whoever. But man, Shaw could play quarterback, the position. He was tough mentally, physically, all that stuff. That Carolina had him made them great. And that was a great run for them. They just lost to Georgia in 13. That was just a tough loss. They lost the wrong games 2 years in a row. To Florida in 12, and then to LSU in 12, and they lost to Georgia in 13. It prevented them from going to play for the title. But that's where Stockton's coming from. He understands it. See, I think for Beck and Vandegrift, there has been some that they've been having to learn. Well, for Carson now, we're years into this. This is year 4 at Georgia. If you talk to people behind the scenes, he's grown up in ways, Carson. So that's the thing to watch. He's always had physical ability from the moment he got to campus. I remember talking to somebody, on staff in August of 2020. He said, "Man, yeah, but everybody." It was, "Yeah, but wait till you see Carson Beck when he gets better and throws and all this stuff. That guy is super gifted." Well, now it's time to do it though. And we're going to see if Carson or Brock or whoever, but it's going to come down to how do they play, not just in practice, but in games.